So this one's an interesting one I have for you today. It's a debate from a 15-year-old male about why he has to share his PlayStation with his siblings when he bought it with his own money. But that's not all. The update for this story is actually a reply from OP's father, where OP's father laid out exactly how he saw the situation and tells us why he's making his son share that PlayStation. I'm 15-year-old and male. Mom and Dad met and briefly dated while they were both studying in university. My mom gave birth to me after they had broken up and had to sue my dad for child support. I was raised by my mom and had virtually nothing to do with my dad throughout my childhood. My mom was an international student and her family cut ties with her due to circumstances of my birth. Tragically, 2 years ago, I lost my mom to cancer and thus I was placed under the care of my dad. My dad has remarried and has 2 sons with his wife. It wasn't a bad arrangement at first, but we were all essentially strangers. I was given a bedroom to myself and we shared some meals, but other than that, just kept to myself. About 10 months ago, I was lucky enough to score a casual job at an aged care facility as an IT support. It was stupid easy money, as it involves installing and maintaining a dozen or so common PCs used by the residents, plus running basic computing workshops. I ended up accruing a whole lot of disposable income in a short time. Stupidly, instead of just keeping quiet about it, I decked out my room with a new TV, headphones, PS5. Obviously, this setup was a great interest to my 2 stepbrothers. Initially, my rule was that they could play the PS5 anytime I wasn't using it, but I would get first dibs if I wanted to play or use my TV. I was also super accommodating by buying an extra controller, which I didn't even need, and several kid-friendly games that they wanted to play. I eventually, had to change the rule. Only play when I was there because the 5-year-old destroyed one of my controllers through spilling apple juice on it. This is where the drama started. They whined to my, quote, parents, who, when ordered me to place the PS5 in the living room, I refused, stating that I purchased it with my own money. This led to their argument that I have too much money and should contribute to rent, utilities, and food. I called their bluff and said, sure, draw up a contract, I'll get a lawyer to review it and ensure it complies with the Family Law Act. My dad then told the boys that he was going to buy a separate PS5 for the boys for Christmas, but the dude's clueless about the global shortage. Finally, last night, after realizing that he had zero chance of buying one of those close to RRP, my dad threatened me to either voluntarily give my PS5 to the boys for Christmas, or he would toss it in the bin while I was at school. I was so pissed that I went on Facebook Marketplace and sold the PS5 for cash money. The boys found out today and were devastated. I feel really bad because they shouldn't be punished for this shit show. My parents are in their room talking about me, and I'm sitting here in my room. Am I the a-hole? How could have I handled this better? What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. So there's multiple updates for this story. We're going to jump into the first one now. I hope you're all having a great day. If you're not subscribed to the channel, just take a second right now. Click that subscribe button underneath the video. It'll help you find updates for the story and watch other content. Here's your update, December 18th. I'm at work now, but my stepmom had a chat with me this morning and it was quite positive. She said she did not know about my existence until right before I came to live with them, so it caused a huge rift between her and Dad. She apologized for projecting that onto me and not being more welcoming. She also did not know about my dad's threats and told me that it won't happen on her watch. My half-brothers also admitted to her about the juice incident. She said that she's going to get the boys a Switch for Christmas, which is another game console, and she offered to pay me the difference between the RRP and getting a new PS5. I probs won't take the money, but at least it is a step forward. This was the longest conversation I've ever had with her, by the way. Mini update, 8 days later, December 26th. So, we've got a gathering with extended family today. This is the first time I've met any of them due to COVID, and they've all been super lovely to me. My stepmom showed them my original post and they're all getting stuck into Dad. My uncle, Dad's younger brother, has set up an account for him and he's doubling down as he thinks people will take his side when they read his account of it. I'm not going to link or read his post, but people have been telling me it's quite a bloodbath. Hey guys, Mr. Reddito here, so you heard that correct. The father of OP made his own post, telling his side of the story, and the title is, "Am I the a-hole for asking my son to share his console with his brothers instead of keeping it in his room?" Well, let's see what the dad has to say. If you're enjoying this, make sure you subscribe and smash that like button. Here's the dad's post. A few days ago, my bio son posted a biased and frankly defamatory post about my incident in the home regarding a PlayStation 5. My wife was kind enough to share the post and comments with our entire extended family at our Christmas gathering, so apparently now I'm a huge jerk. My brother suggested that I post here to set records straight and give people both sides of this issue. First, I never actually intended to charge Jonah rent. His job gives him essentially 100% disposable income purely because he lives in our house. He used his money to deck out his room, buy brand new shoes, buy the latest iPhone all for himself. I couldn't care less about how he spends his money, but it does set a poor example for my other two boys. The last straw was when Jonah set a login password for the PS5. I basically told him that if he's not willing to share, then why should I give him a free ride? My son should be grateful. While we do share DNA, I only dated his mother. May. For 5 months back in university, I was very clear with May that I did not want children, but apparently consent doesn't go both ways. May put me through legal hell, ended up costing me tens of thousands of dollars over the years in child support, setting my goals back. Instead of letting Jonah end up in a group home, I stepped up and took him when May got sick. Instead of gratitude, I constantly have to deal with disrespectful attitudes. Because of Jonah, my wife thinks I breached her trust, all for something that happened well before I met her. While the boys previously did have access to the PlayStation, he now won't let them play it. That school is finished for the year unless he's home, which he never is. I gave him the ultimate of either sharing the console or no one gets to play it. In response, he pulls the most passive-aggressive move ever and sold it, so now no one gets to play. So listen, how am I the jerk here? I've taken this kid into my home. A kid who, by the way, will receive a sizable inheritance in a few years, thanks to May's real estate. I've given him a home, a family, a fund, and his lifestyle at all the cost of my own relationship. In return, I haven't asked for a cent, and he won't treat me with respect, nor follow my rules. But somehow, I'm the giant jerk who's in the study typing this out instead of enjoying Christmas with my extended family. Instead of attacking me, I'm hoping people will now give their fair opinion of the situation based on seeing both sides of the coin. Okay guys, Mr. Reddito here, man. If you think that was heated up, I actually found a semi-update in the comment section of his post. Let me tell ya, things are about to get crazy. Here we go. Okay, clearly this hasn't gone down with the direction I thought it would. Clearly some of you have issues with comprehension or just can't be bothered reading my comments fully. I want to be clear. I never threatened to collect rent from Jonah. I don't need his part-time work money or about his inheritance money. I make a very good salary, probably more than the vast majority of people on here. I simply tried to explain to him that he has all the disposable income because he doesn't have to worry about basic needs. Ugh. I didn't explain it properly at the time because we were arguing, but my intention wasn't for Jonah to give his PS5 to the kids. I just wanted it kept in the common area until I can buy another one for the children. Jonah never told me about the controller. If he had, of course I would have replaced it. That's not the issue. I expected him not to be selfish to his brothers. Keeping it in his room under password protection is so rude. Jonah gets home really late, most days, so my kids are in bed by the time he gets back. I won't debate the nuances about sex and custody. I'm not an idiot. I understand perfect consent and parental responsibilities. I'll just say that there's a large gap between consenting to sex versus consenting to having a child. I get that our current laws are against me on this one. So, I did not intend to lie to my wife either. Jonah and May were something way into the distant past. Our settlement agreement was very clear on that. I had absolutely zero communication with May or Jonah for the last 10 years, prior to finding out about her illness. My child support was at a fixed rate, so I had actually paid her out a lump sum that was supposed to take care of him until 18. It wasn't like he was getting taken out of paychecks. As far as I knew, I was never supposed to hear from Jonah or May ever again. Why would I tell my wife about something like that? Okay guys, Mr. Reddito here, so we can tell based on that post, the dad is heated up. Well, I thought that would be the end of it since he got whatever he needed to say off his chest, but oh no. That was supposed to be the final, but the saga continues, with a slightly different mishap. The dad made another post regarding issues with his son, and here it is. My eldest son, 16, is undergoing a hormonal-fueled rebellious phase. His behavior consists of things like rolling his eyes when I talk, back-chatting when I tell him to do something, overemphasizing putting on his headphones when I enter the room, and a whole laundry list of other passive-aggressive behaviors. It was his birthday yesterday. He was going to go out with his friends this weekend to celebrate by paintballing. However, when I got home from work yesterday, I noticed that he had failed to do some chores that I set for him, and then did the whole headphones routine when I started telling him off for it. I got sick of his attitude that I threatened to ground him for 2 weeks, which meant not letting him leave the house except for work. My words clearly cut through his headphones, and it dawned on him that he would not be allowed to go paintballing this weekend. So he took off his headphones and said, "Go duck yourself," and then shut himself in his room. Well, this naturally led to his actual grounding. The grounding did not seem to faze him as he spends a lot of time in his room anyways. I cut off his devices from our home Wi-Fi, but he works around this by having his own hotspot. He refused to come out for dinner when my wife asked him to, and has basically barricaded himself in his room. At 10 p.m. last night, he ordered himself a meal via a delivery app. Again, he's clearly been passive-aggressive here, flaunting his independence as he's had perfectly lovely meals in the fridge made by my wife. I was still up watching TV, so I intercepted the delivery and ate the meal myself. At some point, my son must have come out and seen me but retreated back to his room without saying anything. My wife thinks I'm a major a-hole for eating the meal, but I think it comes part of the parcel with the grounding. My wife also thinks I'm too harsh with due to the grounding. I'll let him go to paintball if he apologizes. So guys, am I the a-hole here? Okay guys, Mr. Reddito here. This is the final update and it comes from the dad. Well, it seems like the dad and wife are now having marital issues. Let's check it out. My wife, 29, and I, 34, of 8 years, had been having a serious relationship issue over the last few years. The main area of friction between us is that I have a son. He's 16 from a previous teenage fling that I never told my wife about. My 16-year-old came to live with us about 3 years ago because his bio mother died. His presence in our lives caused a lot of tension between my wife and I because she felt I majorly breached her trust. We argued more and more about minor things until last Thursday, I came home to an empty home. I'm devastated. My wife is the love of my life and has always been the main support center in my life. I tried calling her, but she kept sending it to voicemail. She sent me a text saying that she wasn't ready to talk, but was filing for a divorce and to wait to hear from her lawyer regarding separation mediation. I'm a wreck. I would do anything to have her back, including counseling, therapy, whatever. I felt that if I could just talk to her, I can have a chance to explain and we can get through this. Well, the next day I did something stupid. I went to her workplace. It's an accounting firm with her favorite takeaway lunch to try to talk to her. She must have worded up the reception staff because they adamantly refused to buzz me in. Her staff even went as far as calling for the building security. Not wishing to cause further drama, I just left. That night, I doubled down on my stupidity. I tried to visit her at her parents' house with a bunch of gifts for her and the children. My mother-in-law answered through the intercom but would not let me in. I was so frustrated and emotional that I broke down at the door, basically making a scene and refusing to leave. Later, my brother turned up. I assume my wife called him. He tried to convince me to go home, but we ended up in a shouting match. He eventually tried to manhandle me back to the car, so I got into a physical altercation with him, but I left when my father-in-law came out and threatened to call the police on me. Things, well, they've gone downhill like Jack and Jill. This morning, 2 police constables turned up where I work with a provisional domestic violence order, along with summons to attend court for a permanent order. I was in shock, as a result was inadvertently quite rude to the constables. Well, this put them offside. I'm a contractor working at a client's site, so when my client asked the constables what the matter was about, they said they could not say for privacy reasons, but then immediately handed out business cards with their family violence liaison unit. Title embossed at the top. So now my firm's senior partner has waved me off going back to the client site and I may be fired. I feel like this is the wake-up call I needed. I know I've been a narcissistic a-hole and I'm ready to change. What can I do to talk to her, to show her I'm determined to do better? I don't want to just end it like this. I know that if I have a chance to explain myself, to apologize, to promise to work really hard on my marriage, to work on my narcissism, to go to therapy, to go to counseling, whatever my wife needs to forgive me. And well, then we could get on with our life. Our court hearing's in a few weeks, so I'm thinking of turning up early with some expensive jewelry and try to talk to my wife before the hearing. My solicitor has told me this is a horrible idea, but I feel like I need to do something. I don't want to negotiate with my wife across a courtroom. I just want to remind her how much I love her, how much she means to me. What can I do to win my wife back? Has anyone else been in this situation? Well guys, Mr. Reddito here. I'm sorry to end with this update. It's a very small one, but, well, here it is. I get it. It's over. You guys are right. I've ducked up. Irrevocably this time. I've lost my family and likely lost my job. I've always tried to control everything in my life. It's worked for me in the past because my family's wealthy, and they fix things for me. But my wife and brother must have spoken to my parents because they said I can't use the law firm my family has on retainer for my DVO or upcoming separation proceedings anymore. I'll have to hire my own solicitor as soon as the stuff starts opening. I'll seek mental help too. Most importantly, I'll leave my wife alone. Okay, so this one has a lot to review, so we're going to read quite a few comments that go back and forth talking about the story. Here's the first one. That dad needs to get his eyes checked, because he clearly can't see how big of an a-hole he actually is. Guys, if you don't agree with that, drop in the comment section and tell me why you don't think he's an a-hole. I would like to know. Okay, here's the second comment. Dad wrote a novel about the kid rolling his eyes and failed to mention a single time that this child had his only parent die and had to move in with strangers who clearly didn't want him and a dad who clearly resented him his entire life. Guys, that's what's the biggest point for me. I don't think that OP's biofather actually sees the bigger picture, which that commenter just did a good job explaining it. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section what you think, but here's the next comment. I know. I bet after the kid turns 18, he'll have a decent relationship with stepmom and no relationship whatsoever with dad. So guys, let me know. Drop in the comments down below if you think this dad was a complete a-hole or he was doing what was necessary to raise his son. Drop those thoughts. Our next and final story is titled, Alright, so I just want you guys to know the latest updates on the dad whose son sold their PS5 instead of giving it to his manipulative father. Yeah, that's right. It's not over yet. I'm 34 and my wife's 29, and I regularly attend formal functions. About once every 2 to 3 weeks. I work as a consultant, and these events are a great way to attract new business for my network. My wife generally dislikes these things, but she puts on a good act for me. It's generally a good night, lots of food, alcohol, socializing, while our kids are looked after by a sitter. Due to the pandemic, we haven't had any for about 2 years, but they're now starting to come back. On a function 2 weeks ago, my wife came downstairs dressed like in a pantsuit, and her hair in a simple ponytail. Don't get me wrong, she still looked amazing, but pretty much all the other ladies wear ball gowns or cocktail attire. When we talked about it afterwards, she told me that she was sick of the hours of hair, makeup, nails, and preparation, and that if I insisted she go, she'll dress how she pleases. I tried to explain that these things are necessarily part of my industry, but she would not budge. She counters that she never drags me to any of her work functions, which I responded that we should compare pay slips, which was clearly the wrong thing to say. And she left the room. After the argument, I tried to make it up to her, so I ordered a very nice and expensive gown for her to wear for the next function. I even took it to our tailors for adjustment, as they know her measurements. When I presented the dress to her, she was initially very happy and said the dress was gorgeous. But as soon as I mentioned that she should wear it for our next function, she blew up at me. She thinks I'm being manipulative and going against her best wishes. I thought I was just offering her a nice gesture. Am I the a-hole? Alright guys, Mr. Reddito here. So this is a tough relationship situation we find ourselves in. If you have any suggestions or maybe comments you want to drop down below, go ahead and do that. I do have an update for you, and it's not a very happy one. Alright, here it is. I'm sure many of you would be ecstatic to know that my marriage, well, may be over. I came home this evening to find that my wife and my 2 younger boys have left. Probably at her mother's house, since my oldest is still staying at my brother's house since the beginning of January. This has hit me hard. As people now like to remind me on a daily basis, I know now I've been a crappy husband and father. I have some self-reflection to do. I'm a stubborn person, but my wife has always been there to talk me down. I guess she has had enough. The only communication I have is a text from my wife saying she wants a divorce, and that her lawyers will keep in touch regarding separation agreements. I've tried calling, but it keeps going directly to voicemail. Same as my in-laws. I just want to apologize. I want to offer to go to counseling or therapy like she asked. If I still can't get through to her via phone, I'm thinking of going to my in-laws' house. I have to try at least to talk to her. I guess people hate me on here, but I welcome any suggestions if there's any that I can try. Alright guys, if you watched the first story, and now after this second story, I don't know how anyone listening cannot think that this guy is a giant jerk. Not only did he abandon his son, he basically told his son, hey, you're going to abide by my rules or you're screwed. And then finally, the biggest one with the apple on the cake, is now he's forcing his wife to wear certain dresses and basically dictating how she dresses. Let me know how you think about that, guys. Well, it didn't end well for him, as it's looking like divorce is the only route. Let me know what you think about this entire saga. Guys, this has been a wild ride. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to subscribe, and I can't wait to catch you in the next one.